Alright guys, different video today. I'm going to be installing, or not necessarily installing, but giving tips for installing the K&T Performance Premium YXZ 1000 Turbo Kit. Just some stuff because it has no directions that I wish I would have known when I started working on it. So we'll start off with the intakes. There's this little lip on the intake on the outside, and you're going to have to shave that down till it's flat with the back side of the intake there. So just shave it till it's at that level, or you're gonna end up doing this to your O-rings. I made that mistake. You guys don't have to. Just those pieces of rubber won't slide over that. They'll just destroy themselves.
Come on.
Next thing is I installed this Jagged Customs extra large oil reservoir, and you end up running a line across here and cutting the factory line to make it all fit. So you leave everything factory from there up until that clamp, and then right after that clamp you cut it and then install your hose. And then I added this catch can here. You don't have to, but I did. I ran the top of the oil reservoir line to the top of here, and then I ran the bottom up across here, made sure that it cleared the intercooler, and then I ran it to the oil port. So I just took that out, got an AN fitting. You have to cut into the back of this plastic a little bit, but it's not too big of a deal. And then when you put the fuel rails on, you're gonna have to cut out the back side of this a little bit, or else the return for the fuel rail won't work because it's going to hit the back of this plastic. All right, as you can see, the catch can line does not interfere with anything in there. It doesn't touch the intercooler. I did wrap it so that if it did rub against anything, it won't rub through. And then one other thing I did aftermarket, I teed off on the side of the intercooler where you put your wastegate line. Usually that's a 90 off there. I got a 45 and then a T for that. So my wastegate line goes to there. And then I got my plug-in for my boost pressure for my AEM gauge that I got up here. So I got boost pressure and oil pressure. And then, so boost pressures ran to here. And then oil pressures ran down here. I ordered a Weller Racing billet turbo feed adapter. So you got the factory oil pressure sensor and then the aftermarket one right there. Right down in there is where my turbo feed is. It's right on the back side of the head. Just making sure everything clears. I gotta wire the fans in still. I'm also installing a Weller Racing alternator, which just goes right off that flywheel. And then all this turbo stuff is pretty just basic. So you got your coolant lines, one there, one on the other side, and your oil drain there. So oil feed goes in the top, oil drain out the bottom into the back side of the case. And then you got your two coolant lines. Those run around to here, just connect down in there. So another thing I want to mention is this idle air control tube. So what I did, cut a little shorter, and then it runs up in here, and then it sits on the bottom side of the plenum. So you got this 90 here. It'll sit like that and then just come up to there. Pretty simple, but would have been nice to know. All right, so I've got all the dyno jet wiring nice and tucked up. I got this wire for crank sensor, I believe. And then all the rest of the wiring is nice tucked up, zip tied out of the way. And I've got it just ran up. So the O2 sensor line goes across there, back here, and then over to that. And then the main dyno jet harness goes under here and then just across there because it's got injector wires and everything like that. That's my setup for right now. Figure I'll just give a little pan so that if anyone's wondering where stuff should go. So you got your map sensor there, then you got your dyno jet map sensor there. And then under there is that idle air control I was talking about earlier. As you can see, that just runs up, goes to idle air control, doesn't hit anything. Just clear the thermostat, clear everything. And then now I'm ready to put my intercooler on. And for the intercooler, you want to cut out towards the rear of the vehicle, this radiator bracket. Notch out a little bit on that, on the radiator bracket on both sides. And then your intercooler should fit. All right, I did my intercooler a little different. It's all mounted in now. Instead of just running the bolts into the frame, I ran them all the way through. And I got 2-inch bolts here. So that fits perfect. And then 2.5-inch bolts for the front. And I had to put them in upside down because down here, that didn't clear. So I shaved that down a little bit. That bolt goes all the way through there. And then there wasn't really anything I had to do on this side, driver's side. Just ran it upside down. No clearance problems with the turbo or anything. And then I'm gonna do some plumbing. Got these brackets all tightened down. All right, to go along with our turbo upgrade, we installed a Packard billet aluminum case diff. And we got some PRP limiter straps for the shocks so we don't bottom out. They're Elka Stage 5s. And then up front, we got Kryptonite tie rods, as you should. Shout out Kryptonite. And then we got our dyno jet screen right there, our AEM boost and oil pressure gauges, just so that you can have an eye on everything. And then we got our dyno jet modules mounted right here. It's just Velcro. And then I ended up having to get a 6-foot cord for this CAN cable to connect this dyno jet module all the way up here to this dyno jet screen, so you can read what that's saying without having your computer out. And then we got a return style fuel system. Gotten a lot done since the last time I checked in with you guys. So I ran my return for that fuel line I showed you earlier. I just put like an electrical wrap on it just to keep it nice and safe. And then right there is where the other fuel line that goes across meets up with it. And then I just did a nice wrap around that. And then from there, you got your feed and you got your return line. So you already got the feed there, and then you got the return there. I had to add the return. And then with our dyno jet stuff, that's all wired in. I had to run the power and ground for that auto tune, which dyno jet recommends that you run it to the brake light. And then I got all my wiring tucked up. All ran nice and factory. Got my ground right there for the dyno jet. I'm still waiting on little AN clamp holders for the lines. I put this relay in. It's a 5-pin, but I'm running 4 pins. So that goes for the fans on this intercooler. And then I've got a fuse tap right there on the accessory power. So when the key's on, it's gonna turn those fans on, which is what they recommend. And then I got the AEM boost gauges and oil gauge wired up. This wiring is really messy right now, so don't mind it, but I got it coming out under there. Got my wires ran over here. The only wires you need for this are the black and the red. And then that right there, that plug goes right into here, which this is just a phone charger that I installed earlier. So when the key's on, that'll be on. I also ran the vent for the diff, so it's got 2 vents. It's got one on the side, one on the top. So I got the side one, ran up around the side to a T, and then from that T runs through that little tube. Then from there, I just got a little brass fitting. I think I'll probably change that up, but then it goes down, follows the factory spot, and then meets up here with the tank vent, which the tank vent then goes there. And then we got my intake here, which this intake's not for this kit. So as you can see here, the wastegate literally just comes straight out and just points right at the intake, which would make extremely high intake temps. I'm gonna have my buddy Drew probably pie cut that and then have it point out this way. And then with that diff, we put in a beefier drive shaft. That's all in. Deleted the parking brake on here, so just leave it in first gear when we park it. Really not too much. Should be able to start it and test it in the next day or so. A lot of stuff going into this build, but we're gonna get her nice and dialed, nice and reliable, get her ripping. Really all I have left to do wiring wise on this is right here on the back of the ECU. It says jumper rad fan relays, rear 2 relays on passenger side with ECU, or passenger side by ECU. Yellow red to yellow white, which that would be these 2 relays right here. And then we got yellow white right there. And then on this one, you got yellow red. So I got to jumper those, and then should be good to put the ECU in, put plastics on, fill it with oil, fill it with coolant, fill the trans. Should be ready to rock. Oh, and put oil in the diff. I'll clean up all this wiring for you so you don't have to look at that ever again. And then clean up this wiring up here, and then give you an update then. All right, so I got that jumped. I just used some T-taps that I had laying around. So as you can see, yellow white jumpers it across to yellow red, and then that just makes sure that both the relays turn on at the same time. After doing that, put the ECU in place, and then I can start putting stuff back together. Alrighty, well I filled it with oil and coolant. I filled the trans with oil, filled the diff, and then just started up a little bit ago, running really rich. We put bigger injectors in compared to what the base map was on, so I'll have to tune that. Besides that, just putting plastics on now. Alright, I got her done. All the plastics are on. All it needs is a tune now. I kind of tied up some of these lines so that they're not going to be in the way of the exhaust. We got our intake coming up here, across here, as you guys already saw, but fully done. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you on the next one. Automotive Aficionado Science Channel.